What if I told you that one of the most critical fuel storage sites in the US military's arsenal is sitting on a ticking time bomb? And the Navy didn't even fully understand the risks? Stick around, because this could change everything you think you know about military readiness and how we store fuel in the middle of paradise. Let's break it down, because this is going to get shocking. Alright, let's get into the meat of this. You're probably thinking, fuel tanks? In Hawaii? What could go wrong? Well, a lot more than you'd expect. The US Navy has these giant fuel storage tanks right near Pearl Harbor, and not just any tanks. We're talking about tens of millions of gallons of jet fuel, diesel, and other types of fuel stored underground, right next to one of the most historic and strategic military sites in the world. It all sounds pretty safe, until you realize these tanks are aging. And by aging, I mean they're basically ancient. Some of them are over 70 years old. Imagine if your car had been running for that long without a checkup. Yikes, right? But here's where it gets a little spicy. The Navy knew there were risks, even though they had multiple studies warning about possible leaks and the threat of contamination to the surrounding environment. And yet, the tanks stayed in place. The military was all like, it's fine, it's fine. But here's the thing, these tanks, with all their rust and corrosion, have been leaking. For years. Leaking fuel straight into the groundwater. And guess what? It's not just your average, oh no, we spilled some gas situation. This stuff is toxic. It could contaminate drinking water for thousands of residents. If you're wondering what happens when millions of gallons of jet fuel start poisoning the land, well, think disaster movie, but it's real life. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, so it's bad. But why is this such a big deal? Here's why. This isn't just about an environmental disaster waiting to happen. It's about national security. The Navy depends on these tanks to fuel its planes, ships, and military operations. If these tanks fail, it doesn't just affect a few civilians. It could literally impact the Navy's ability to respond to emergencies, carry out military missions, and even defend the country. Yeah, no pressure. To make matters worse, the Navy didn't take any major action until years after they knew about the problems. And who can forget the massive leak in 2021, where about 19,000 gallons of fuel spilled into the Red Hill Aquifer, a critical water source. The Navy was forced to suspend operations, and people started asking, what the heck is going on over there? So, what did the Navy do? They promised they'd fix everything. They vowed to shut down the tanks. But here's the catch. The US military's own watchdog group, the Government Accountability Office, recently released a report. And as spoiler alert, they said the Navy still doesn't fully understand the risks. Yeah, it's kind of like someone promising they'll clean up a mess, but then not even knowing where the broom is. That's like trying to fix your Wi-Fi by turning it off and on again, but forgetting the password. Alright, so let's wrap this up. We've got old, leaking fuel tanks. We've got an environmental crisis waiting to explode. And we've got a Navy that maybe isn't as prepared as they should be. You're probably asking yourself, how could something like this happen in the first place? Good question. But here's an even bigger one. Can we trust the military to handle critical infrastructure when they clearly missed the mark here? And let's not even get started on the long-term consequences of all of this. Fuel tanks that leak for years don't just mess up water supplies. They could also impact the health of thousands. And let's face it, if this goes from oops to it could hurt our military's readiness and our safety of the nation. So, is the Navy really ready to tackle a crisis of this magnitude, or is this just the tip of the iceberg? So here's your homework, folks. Do you think the Navy is finally taking this problem seriously, or are they just putting out the smallest fires while the whole tank yard is about to explode? Comment below and let us know what you think about this situation. And while you're at it, hit that like button if you think the Navy needs a new set of maps or a new pair of glasses. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. We've got more deep dives into the stories that really matter. Until next time, stay curious and keep your tanks rust-free.